Welcome to In Depth. My name is Sibigela Maposa. This past weekend, the RBZ issued a statement and put in place various measures to regulate the way mobile money services do their business. This left many consumers anxious and uncertain how this was going to roll out. Well, with me today, I have Mr. Meshek Ugaro, who is a banker and economist and the former vice president of the Zimbabwe Economists Association. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Sbo.
I also have with me Simbarashe Mangwendeza, who is a senior researcher at Agribos Zimbabwe, an economist. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you, Sbu.
We also have Tapiwa Dovo, who's based in the UK and will be joining us via Skype. Tapiwa, kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Tapiwa Dovo. I'm based in the United Kingdom. I work for Deloitte and Touch. I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and I specialize in banking and capital markets audit.
Tapiwa, can you briefly take us through how mobile money is supposed to work in terms of best practice?
Mobile money and the banks should operate in the same way. The mobile money operators are the de facto banks, like in Zimbabwe, because we know there's a huge amount of transactions that are going through the mobile money operators. So this way mobile money is functioning, or the way mobile money is working in Zimbabwe, this should be the same with the way banking services are operating. So in this case, we are looking at the requirements that the mobile money should make to any users who want to use their services. We know they need an ID with your name and so forth. But this is not enough, because there are some other information that they should also consider, like the proof of residence, the proof of income, because you're just taking someone and put in or allowing them to use your systems or your services without knowing them enough. So because of that, there is a gap between mobile money operators and the banking with regard to the know your client procedures. So in this regard, the best practice is to know your client fully. This will prevent criminal activities like money laundering or the financing of terrorism, because you know your users fully.
And Mr. Ogaro, we have seen that mobile money services is a very efficient and convenient service. But in the Zimbabwean context, where did we leave room for manipulation? What didn't we see and what went wrong?
So it's like mobile money came into Zimbabwe as a very good innovation for people to access transfer funds. If you look at how we did this, when it started, a person in Harare, I could send money to my grandmother in Chayamiti.
Yes.
Because there's no bank in Chayamiti. And I could go to my bank, withdraw cash, go to an agent, give him cash, and he transmits it to another agent in Chayamiti who cashes out.
And is able to get
yes,
cash.
and my grandmother would get cash.
Yes.
These agents would just charge a commission for doing this service. And what has happened now, coming to Tapiwa's KYC issue, which is the know your customer. If you recall very well, at the beginning, when you go to an agent, you would be registered. They had a register which they will write you, and if you cash out, they need to see your ID that you are the person who's going to benefit from this. So that kind of fell away. That is problem number one. Problem number two, Zimbabwe, due to our economic challenges, came to a problem of cash shortages. And I'll give you some numbers. In general, an economy is supposed to have cash and coins, physical cash and coins, of about 10 to 12% of money supply. If we look at Zimbabwe's case, our money supply of about 40 billion means we must have cash and coins of about 4 billion circulating. But we currently have below 2 billion, about 1.6 billion. So there's a shortage. So if you go to a bank, you might be told that cash has run out.
Correct.
So the problem arose because if I went to my bank asking for $100, they would tell me we don't have $100. So what I would do, I would move bank to wallet $100 to my wallet, and then go to an agent who also doesn't have the money, and he will give me cash, but he will charge me. So I'll basically be buying my cash from the agent. So he'll give me $40 or $50, but I took 100 from my bank, and
The difference is the
yeah.
estimate.
So that is problem number 2, that shortage of cash in circulation. Problem number 3, which I think is the biggest, is that there is an element of corruption and arbitraging that then happened. I think a group or a class of people emerged that took advantage of the loophole that the KYC was no longer being insisted on, so they could do anything they
have multiple
wanted.
accounts and
Yes.
they're all ghosted.
So I think that I've heard that the authorities have said one particular mobile company was carrying about 8 billion Zim dollars on their platforms outside the system, and that money cannot really be tracked as to who is there, basically because that had now gone outside the system. So that's the I would say the third problem. Finally, the fourth problem is, I think our authorities, in this case I mean the monetary authorities, which is the central bank, took time to really notice what was happening.
I'll take you up on your third issue, where you're saying that banks seem to be shadowing finances. And a few months back, we had the RBZ accusing EcoCash for doing shadow banking. How do you think the service of mobile banking should be separated or divorced from mobile money services? What divide should be given to ensure that these two are not encroaching and maybe manipulating one or the other?
I think the definition should actually be front-run by the regulator. In this case, it's the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. They're the custodian of our currency, preserving its value, and they should be at the forefront of ensuring that that money is not abused in the way that it was. So regulators should have been leading this front charge. But unfortunately, in the case of Zimbabwe, you saw that mobile money operators were actually leading in actually taking care of that deficiency in cash in the system. And because a lot of people were facing this challenge of a deficiency in cash, it caught on quite quickly. I think it wouldn't be too untoward to say that mobile money operators actually benefited from the cash shortages in Zimbabwe. And as a result, their businesses actually grew. What was deficient, unfortunately, is that the regulator was not in front. They should have been studying how the system is actually working and ensuring that there are certain regulatory pillars that are observed to ensure that money is not abused as the first case, and number 2, the public is not placed in situations where they actually have to pay premiums for their own cash. So maybe a meeting of minds, as it were, was necessary, where the mobile money operators met with the regulators, told them exactly what they were doing, what they were seeing, so that the regulator could actually protect the public's confidence in the financial system, and also the regulator ensures that business can continue as is without unnecessary stoppages and concerns about the market being manipulated.
How does best practice restrict mobile platforms from becoming digital cash platforms?
I think it can be done in a number of ways, but the most important thing, I think, would be, just as an example, having trust accounts that are linked to the banking system so that people cannot wantonly create money. There's also this principle of KYC, which is very important. I think it's taken very lightly when people talk about KYC, but it's one of the most important pillars in fighting anti-money laundering, and in this case, an abuse of Zimbabwe's monetary system. So regulation is quite important in that regard.
Thank you very much. We'll be taking a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's talk about trust accounts. How does this play out in a market situation?
This is the crux of the matter in Zimbabwe. How mobile money should operate is that the companies must open a trust account or trust accounts in a bank. So the money that is circulating in the mobile networks should mirror the balances in the trust accounts. These two should balance. What the import of the central bank is saying is that the amount in the trust account, which is what the central bank can see, is different from the amount circulating on the mobile phone.
Then we can account
There
for
is
the
a
difference.
difference. And this difference is what is called new money, which is being created outside the system. This money is now going to be used to buy foreign currency and therefore push the exchange rate up. So ideally, the mobile companies should balance and always reconcile what's on their networks against the trust account. And that way, the authorities can have a handle of what's going on.
Okay.
Yes.
Tapiwa, coming to you, do you think these measures are able to curtail the differences and inefficiencies that have been created in the system and spiraled activities in the parallel market?
It has been mentioned by Simba that the central bank has not been in front of this. In other words, they did not have controls in place to detect or to prevent counterfeit money being created on the mobile platform. And then going into what Meshek said, he said there should be some form of reconciliation between the money that is circulating through mobile phones and the money that is held with a trust account. I think if that kind of reconciliation is done on a regular basis, we can identify any abuse of the system or any additional money that has been created timelessly. You see. So a strong central bank should put controls that are preventative. In other words, that should prevent fraud from taking place. There should be controls that detect the fraud when it takes place. In the UK, for example, we've got the Bank of England, which acts as the central bank. They've got punitive measures that they've put in place. Their fines are hefty. If there's any breach by any operator, whether it's a bank, it doesn't matter how big the bank is, the fine is unbearable. It can push someone out of business. The license, your operating license, can be cancelled. So I believe the RBZ should set that tone for any breach or for any operations that are outside the dictates of the law. The perpetrator should be punished. It is the duty of the central bank to restore order in any banking or in any monetary system. So if the central bank is not doing that, then our system is subject to abuse. So yes, they've put some measures, but to me, it's not good enough.
Simba, coming to you, what do you think should have been done to ensure that these services are not overlapping their jurisdiction?
I think I'll go back to that point of trust accounts. The RBZ should have been in a position like what Tapiwa rightfully said, that at any given time, they have a direct reconciliation of all the monetary stock in the economy. The trust accounts are good because it becomes very difficult for any operator to create new money, that is, for it to join the system. So I think at that fundamental level, there should have been that link where mobile money operators at any given time are connected to the national payment system through those trust accounts, so that this abuse of the system should not have happened. Also going back to Tapiwa, I think because the regulator was not at the forefront of ensuring that we didn't see abuse of the system, they should have, been in a better relationship with the mobile money operators. This is new territory we're going into, and I think globally technology takes, strides ahead of what the regulator is doing. So the only way regulators can get ahead of this is to be always in constant communication with the players in the market, and they work together. Because at the end of the day, the regulator uses some of its regulatory or reputational scuff because this happened under their watch. And at the same time, I don't think the mobile money operators are satisfied with some of the drastic measures that the regulator then takes to bring things back into a straight line. So I think there should have been more communication between the two, working together. And again, back to Tapiwa, those punitive fines should be there, but it's a bit too late to talk about the fines now.
Yes.
They should have been there as a deterrent, a preventative control, rather than to say after the fact we're going to put in this measure. The damage has already been done.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe coming to you, Meshek, what recommendations or remedies
Yeah.
can you maybe suggest at
Yes.
this point going
Yes,
forward?
that brings to my mind the statement by the governor of the central bank. He said there are demons. So you're asking me to be the prophet to
How do you exercise the demons?
Yeah, the
Yes.
demons there. Thanks for the challenge. But before I do that, I think Simba mentioned an interesting point regarding the regulator and the mobile money operator. I would like to kind of absolve the central bank for a while, because the truth is mobile money operations are actually not known the world over. That is a fact, and it's, as he says, a new innovation. It's a disruptive innovation which we are all learning about. In fact, some even say the reason it is not there in the developed world is it's not understood.
It's unquantifiable.
It's not understood. In fact, Oxford University recently, through their Center for African Studies, have carried out a study to try and understand mobile money operations. So, in fact, Africa is for once leading in this.
In this innovation.
Yes.
the
So,
dynamic.
so I would like to absolve the central bank. It's a new thing. It came as a good thing, and for our mobile network operators, it was like a road to hell paved with good intentions. This has happened. So now coming to your issue, what needs to be done? I think that the mobile money operators need to realize that they are on the same side with the regulator. When they need to remove the confrontational conflict approach.
And see that we are all working towards creating a dynamic where everyone is happy and everyone is able to actually maneuver and move on with your business. Well, we'll need to take a short break. Do stay with us. Welcome to the final segment. Before we get into discussing policy issues, all banks were required to liquidate through the banking system. Why is this important?
In my opinion, I think they're trying to do a reconciliation of some of this new money. The banking sector, in terms of even knowing your customer, they are better placed in terms of actually carrying out this process. So I think it's an attempt by the Reserve Bank to try and rein in where this new money is coming from. And also it curtails the abuse that was actually happening in the system. But like I said before, it's coming in a bit too late, but we are where we are and we actually have to move forward. So those are my justifications for them liquidating through the banking system.
Okay. Now, Meshek, coming to you, mobile money is definitely the modern way of transaction. What can be done and what can be put in place to ensure that we don't have issues sticking out? Or what should we look forward to as we trailblaze the new dynamic?
Yes, it is definitely the way forward, and it has come at the right time for Africa and the third world, because it is the way to solve the non-bank population problems, the way to answer the inclusivity question. So we need it, and this is why I said the mobile money operators must see the regulators as their partners rather than their adversaries, so that together they can come up with possible solutions. So to answer your questions, I think we must have mobile money operators that self-introspect and not see only profit. What has happened in Zimbabwe could have didn't need the regulator to step in with such a hard can I say position. if the operators were proactive in their risk management procedures, they would have identified reputation as a big risk, and they would have set up compliance departments in themselves to ensure that they kept KYC up to standard. And they would have also seen the suspicious transactions and flagged them up to the authorities. It didn't need the authorities to step in.
Correct.
So I'm calling for responsibility from the operators.
Tapiwa, can we maybe hear final words from you as a way forward? What can we do, or what do you hope to see in the near future in the Zimbabwean economic dynamic?
In terms of the users of the mobile money operators, what the banks should do is to profile their users. This is just a metaphor. It's an IT thing. There should be an IT program that can probably profile the kind of money that goes through one user to the other. All users are not the same. The monies are not the same. Mobile operators, they need to profile their users, monitor their users. Any unusual activity on any user should be identified timeously. The RBZ should move with time. Technology is improving day by day. So RBZ should be abreast with all those developments, and they should put in laws and regulations that move with technology.
Coming to you, Simba, what can be done to ensure a trusting relationship between banks and their consumers?
I think to build trust, we need policy consistency. I know the points that we've talked about on this program, and I hope that the regulatory authorities take them to heed. But I would not want a repeat of what actually happened. What gives people confidence and trust is policy consistency and very few surprises. We don't want a blanket statement that actually affects, in this case, people who are unaware of what was happening in the bigger picture. You'd want the regulator to be always ahead of the curve in terms of abuse of mobile money, but at the same time, introducing policy measures that do not frighten the market. I think the first governmental statement was quite concerning for a lot of investors, the public, ordinary people who are using the mobile money transaction. The RBZ statement was rather watered down and actually showed an understanding of how the system actually works. So instead of creating that initial panic, I would rather that the RBZ put in those measures whilst working in the background to ensure that the system isn't abused. So that policy consistency, that stability, those minimal surprises in policy announcements, I think that would actually build trust and confidence in the system, and I hope to see that going forward.
Well, I'd like to thank my guests for joining us on the program. Thank you very much, Tapiwa Dova, who's been joining us via Skype from the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. I love you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Mishik, for allowing us your time and knowledge on the issue of economics and the mobile banking platform here in Zimbabwe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bisi. Much
And
appreciated.
Last but not least, thank you very much, Simba, for joining us on today's program.
You're most welcome, Sue.
Well, that's it for today. My name is Sibigela Maposa, and this is In Depth.